I'm Ashley Wagasback, feeding therapist, occupational therapist, and lactation consultant. Look forward to discussing all things feeding so that we can support you to bring your little one to their maximum potential so that feeding can be enjoyable for the entire family.
Are you looking for a community of other moms joining together to support their little one through the ups and downs of feeding and gross motor milestones? The Thriving Together community is just for you. Find us on social media at Instagram, Facebook, and www.sensorysolutionsTherapy.com to learn more. We look forward to seeing you.
Everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Feeding Solutions podcast. Today I have a very special guest on. She is a friend and colleague. Her name is Holly Grabert. I'm going to tell you a bit about her. She is local to the Houma Thibodeau area. She has a brick and mortar speech and feeding that she opened in 2017, and their clinic has a multidisciplinary team where they have speech, OT, PT, and they offer feeding therapy as well. In 2025, she opened or became the founder of Feeding Connections, and that offers feeding support and coaching. And she extends her expertise beyond traditional therapy settings. And so Feeding Connections provides structured coaching programs and practical feeding resources, guided support to parents navigating early feeding challenges, combining her clinical insights with accessible real-world tools for everyday success. So it is a joy to have you here, Holly. Thank you so much for coming to share all that you do, and we get to talk about the things that we're so passionate about. So thank you very
Yes,
much.
thank you. I am so excited to sit down and share to the world everything that we love.
Absolutely. Yes. Yeah. So Holly and I have worked together in the same little South Louisiana community for goodness, probably 15 years.
Yes,
And so this is a great opportunity to share what we absolutely adore. So
yes.
tell us a little bit about like what inspired you to really dive into infant feeding, kind of where that journey took place.
Yes, definitely. So, like you mentioned before, we worked together in a brick and mortar a long time ago in South Louisiana, and I learned a lot about the sensory part of feeding, but also just with children in general from you. And, I thank you forever for that because that was a big part as a speech therapist that maybe the knowledge of that is not taught in school. So the
Yeah.
experience of collaborating and working together has definitely, I believe, made me a better therapist, learning that kind of component that happens within our babies and children and all the way through adolescence. But really what got me started was I have a 15-year-old son that struggled to breastfeed. And I feel like most of us that are in this world has struggled at one point or another. Um, I had recurrent mastitis and did not know what to do. So I went to my OB, and my OB advised me to wrap up and give me medicine.
Mhm.
I was very young, and so I listened to my doctor. And I really had some type of postpartum after that because I was like, oh my gosh, I can't breastfeed now. I was only 2 weeks into this, and you can't go back.
Right.
And then it was just traumatic for me emotionally. And I didn't even try to reach out for support. I didn't even know if there was support in the little bitty town of
Yeah.
South Louisiana. I don't really think there was back then.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's kind of what started this like journey for me. Like I don't want any mom to feel this way. Did not have any schooling about infant feeding. It didn't happen for me, 20 something years ago. That just
Mhm.
wasn't, I might have had one class, but no direct education. So it's been my life to go to all these classes. I've been to all over the United States to different seminars and classes and virtual when COVID hit, and have really tried hard to be able to support families both in South Louisiana and virtually so that no mom ever really has to go through what myself and many others have gone through.
Absolutely. Yeah, I agree. Many of us are on this journey of supporting because we've lived it and it's
Yes.
excruciating and it leaves
Oh,
scars and you struggle to recover from that. Like it comes up like in
yes.
your daily life. It's true.
Yeah, we'll
So,
sit down with moms and they'll say something and like my
like,
whole body will come up with chills because I'm like, oh, I've been there. Like, oh, it's just
yeah.
so much.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yes.
So you're a speech pathologist, I'm an
Yes.
occupational
Yes.
therapist. So we both can see and we do in the feeding world support infants and young children and
Mhm.
beyond with feeding
Mhm.
difficulties. So let's talk about and kind of help listeners understand like how that works together and maybe like what it looks like from the different disciplines.
Of course, yes. So as an SLP, I find that, we look more at the oral motor, which is like the movements of the mouth.
Hmm.
We look at suck, swallow, breathe coordinations. We do look at the latch. We also listen to the swallowing. That's a big part of what we learn and study for in class. And as a SLP, we can look at the oral reflexes and really the safety and efficiency of feeding. With my career, I have furthered in myo. So that is
Hmm.
some airway. I have also taken courses on body tension. I am not a body worker, but I'm knowledgeable in like what tension is and when to refer out.
Hmm.
Um, there are some exercises that I'll give, but if anything, I like to add on OT,
Hmm.
PT, chiropractor, whatever that looks like for the body work. So yeah, that's kind of more of a speech pathologist.
Hmm.
We do bottle and breast, but we look more at the motor skills and coordination and efficiency for latching and swallowing.
Perfect. That's very helpful. Yeah, and I mean, and again, from the occupational therapy standpoint, I mean, my role, in just in general, is like activities of daily living, and
Mhm.
so an infant's activity of daily living is their ability to feed, regulate, connect, and
Mhm.
so a lot of the things that you just mentioned, as far as oral coordination, we're looking at as well. We're pulling in heavily into like the ability for the nervous system to be regulated, mom's nervous
Mhm.
system to be regulated.
Mhm.
So a lot of it, and then like from again the body tension standpoint, because of our neuromuscular background, looking at the whole body. So there is a ton of overlap, I guess, is
Absolutely.
like the key for people to listen, and like you're not doing a disservice to yourself if you're like, I can't do both because that
Right.
seems very overwhelming. But
Right.
if you have the ability to collaborate with someone and have both services, that's only going to be to your advantage as well, because there is a little bit of differentiation and more expertise. Like the speech pathologist is really trained on the swallow. Like I say, like I
Mhm.
can get to the mouth, but then when the swallow happens and if there's something that seems really off, it's like, no, we're referring out to speech to assess for
Right.
that. So
Right.
there is definitely a collaborative um, approach in there. So whenever you're seeing feeding challenges that show up on your caseload, that maybe don't always show up in mine, vice versa. Um, like what, as far as like when you feel like you are referring out, like what's the biggest things that you would say? Um,
Yeah, so like from the SLP side, like what I often see is that poor latch or seal,
mhm.
the clicking. That's also like what we see a lot. The milk leaking out the sides of the mouth,
Yeah.
or even just like the spittiness.
Mhm.
I think a lot of families think their child is choking, where sometimes they're just coughing and gagging.
Mhm.
And
Mhm.
so the
That's a
knowledge
biggie.
of understanding what's really going on with your baby, I think is really
Mhm.
important. We have moms that come in that's like, my baby's choking. And I'm like, well,
Mhm.
let's look. Well, we're really not choking, but there is
Mhm.
something going on. Let's
Mhm.
diverge and look and see what's causing these difficulties with feeding. Fatigue, the baby just being so fatigued from working those oral skills or those oral reflexes not really
Mhm.
integrating like they should be. Also, a big concern could be just that milk transfer, that they
Hmm.
aren't producing enough milk. And that's when we kind of bring in lactation and
Hmm.
see how that can help, because sometimes the babies are working so hard and the mom's not producing the milk. Also, like
Hmm.
a vocal quality, like that raspy cry or that wet cry.
Hmm.
That's a very much a sign, especially as a speech therapist, that we want to look into, reflux or aspiration. Um, and then, of course, just the coordination and strength of all those oral motor. There's so much that goes into an initial latch, consecutive
Yeah.
latching, swallowing. I mean, we take it for granted every day that we can eat and swallow. And there's just so much that goes into it: muscular, nervous system, sensory system, brain, motor patterns that we have to assess. And we have to kind of work with these mamas to explain to them that it's going to be okay.
And that there's a lot of grace for like the fact
Mm-hmm.
that it's a learned skill.
Yes. Yes.
Like I feel like moms come in beating themselves up
Yes.
because it just seems like it should just be so natural.
Right.
And when it doesn't, like it's not instinctual or
Mm-hmm.
it's not natural, they really struggle. And so we know feeding issues
We
are not
do.
just feeding. So, like, what are some of the things, because I'm seeing it,
Right.
that emotional toll that is being, that you're
Yes.
seeing? Like, what is it?
Oh.
Like what do you do when you see that emotional toll that is weighing on the parents? Yeah.
I always ask each mom, dad, caregiver, whoever's in my sessions or virtually, like, what is your goal? What
Hmm.
do you want out of this? Like, where do you see yourself in 3 days? Where do you see with your baby in a week? Where do you see yourself in 3 months? If mom has to go back to work, if mom's
Hmm.
going to be at stay at home, do you want a combo feed? Do you want to breastfeed only? Do you want a bottle feed only? So I try to really at first obviously establish rapport and trust with the family, but I want to know what is their goal, because it's so important
Hmm.
to understand what a mom wants and what the expectations are and where they are in the moment, because that is where I start. And then once I feel like we have a good plan of our goal for mom, baby, then I start looking at the anxiety, and helping mom with that, the guilt, the blame, just the confusion on the internet is a big
Hmm.
one. They'll come in and they're like, I read this bottle or I knew about this pacifier. And I'm like, okay, slow down.
Yeah.
And their fear of failure. I had that. And there's the grief that feeding should be natural. I mean, that
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
grieve not being able to breastfeed my first baby so long. And if I
Hmm.
could help prevent or lessen these things for a mom, then I mean, I'm sure you feel the same way. Then we are doing a huge success in this whole world of virtual feeding, because having the mom, the caregiver, the dad, the family feel like they're bonding with their baby and they're not struggling is just a huge part of
Absolutely. Well, that kind of brings me to the next point. Like we're looking at, parents come into our world and they're struggling in that here and now, but
it.
we
Mm-hmm.
know what the big picture of feeding
Mm-hmm.
looks like and we know what we want the end to look like, not only in just like the infant feeding, but just as like successful feeding throughout the lifespan. So like
Absolutely.
when you're in that initial eval with that infant, like what are your non-negotiables that you look at when you're with the family and the baby?
The non-negotiables, like I always look at baby's regulation and readiness. Like when I'm looking at the
Hmm.
baby and I feel like mom's in a good spot to really listen and ready to, here we go, we're ready to help the baby. I think looking at regulation and readiness is number one. Like what can the
Hmm.
baby handle? Where is the baby in the regulation state? Also the oral motor function, like we mentioned before, and coordination. Or is the tongue, the palate, the cheeks, the jaw, all the oral motor movements, are they working, coordinating together? The oral reflexes, I always discuss with parents and families how feeding begins reflexive and then becomes automatic, and how important that transition is for a baby between 3 and 4 months. Positioning and just body support, the neck tension, the preference, and like I said before, the parents' readiness and understanding of what's going on.
Hmm.
We also look at environmental things like what's going on in their life. Did they have a difficulty delivery?
Hmm.
Or is there an extra stress, at home? Are they going through
Very
job
important.
loss or a death
Hmm.
in the family or another sibling that's sick? I mean, all those environmental stressors can affect mom's ability to just calm and regulate to have a successful feed. And then, we just want feeding to be successful, the safety, comfort, efficiency, and sustainability for mom and baby.
Absolutely. Yeah. It's also very important. And you have to look at it from a holistic standpoint, but you have to,
Absolutely. You have to.
because you're
Yes.
you're you're not doing the family a service if not.
Mm-mm.
So
Right. I
important to look at
agree.
all those pieces. So you mentioned earlier the misinformation out there. I mean, the
Oh,
internet, social media is it's so beautiful, but it causes so much confusion with families. I
absolutely.
think we all can agree that we've experienced that. So when someone comes into your world, like what's something that you want to like advice or a piece of information that maybe someone's hearing constantly that you're having to kind of like rewrite the story and clarify like, okay, no, this is not correct. Or like, what's your
Mhm.
thing that you feel like you're on repeat about?
Just wait it out, or
Mm-hmm.
babies
Mm-hmm.
will grow out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Um, these are the biggest misconceptions. And just talking to their pediatricians and their pediatricians, not all pediatricians, but a lot that I've come encountered with virtually and everywhere, you know, just give it time. Just give it time.
Mm-hmm.
Things will get better. And I'm not saying that giving it time, things will get better because we talk about that in our sessions.
Mm-hmm.
Um, this is honestly where I started thinking, like, how can I help these moms virtually to
Mm-hmm.
bond, to feel confident when they are hearing, just wait it out, and they may not need intensive therapy. They may not
Mm-hmm.
need, me, you, the whole team, the revision provider, the lactation. They may just need a few virtual sessions of support. And
Mm-hmm.
so on this time, I created some guides that have some video demonstrations that can help a baby both with their oral motor, their stretching, just a lot of knowledge and confidence and support
Mm-hmm.
for these moms, so they don't have to schedule one-on-ones every single time too. But that early guidance is just what these mamas need. I'll tell them all the
Mm-hmm.
time. I wish I could see every mom and baby a week after they got out of the hospital or 3 days after they got out of the hospital,
Yeah.
because the knowledge and support that we can give early on, honestly, is better than almost anything we can give. That
Yeah.
first 2 weeks, we can see these babies. I believe we can do so much more.
Yeah. And we're oftentimes not seeing them until much later than
Right?
that. And
Yes, it is.
so
Yes.
I mean that sweet spot it is. It would be
Mhm.
so beautiful. And so like being able to see moms early,
Oh,
even like before they have the baby would be so
yes,
valuable
absolutely.
as well because there's a
Hmm.
ton of information. So like what is something that you wish parents that were coming to you for feeding support, what do you wish that they already knew like before they got to your door?
I wish they knew they weren't alone. I
Yeah.
wish they knew that so many moms struggle with the same thing.
Hmm.
I
Hmm.
mean, and I wish they knew that if their mama gut tells them something's going on, trust it. I say that so many times in my sessions. No, you're
Hmm.
right. Your mama gut's telling you something.
Hmm.
Let's listen to it. Let's figure out what
Hmm.
it's telling you and let's get the help you
Hmm.
need, whether it's not me or something else. Like,
Hmm.
I just want to be proactive with these families and help them navigate this journey with whatever resources there are. I feel like I tell my families also feeding is tongue to toe. And so
Hmm.
there's so much to look at and to help guide them in the right direction. And I feel like if that is what I can do, then I'm
You've,
doing my
you've,
job to help these
right.
families. I mean, it's that support.
Absolutely. So you just said tongue to toe. That leads me to my
Yes.
next question as far as like collaborative care
Yes.
goes. So when you are when that is possible for a family, what in your experience has that looked like? Like when speech and another discipline, if it's chiropractic care, PT, OT, like what does that look like for a family?
I think that once a family gets to my in my clinic or online, I have to get a feel for what where the mom is and how much
Hmm.
they're willing or wanting to expand on a team. I
Yeah.
try to explain to the families how important a team is and that I'm just a piece of the puzzle. Like I'm
Hmm.
going back tongue to toe. I'm
Hmm.
kind of like working right here, the mouth, the floor of the mouth, which then is connected to the neck. Then you have the
Hmm.
shoulders. Then it kind of comes back to me with some muscular things with digestion. Then you have the hips, which is out of, speech is round all the way
Hmm.
to the toes. And I'll go through and discuss like where lactation come in and helps with positioning and breastfeeding, where OT and PT comes in for body, neck, shoulders, hips, toes, and chiropractic.
Hmm.
I'll also talk about the mental part if a counselor is maybe needed or,
Hmm.
holistic resources in your area that can help with that. But yeah, that tongue to toe is just helps the family understand visually. Like there's so much going on, and that me as a speech therapist is just one piece of this puzzle,
Hmm.
and that working together to come up with a cohesive plan and putting all the pieces together. And we're lucky in this small town that we text each other as
Yeah.
providers, and we absolutely work as a team. We're very
Hmm.
fortunate between the revision providers and the chiropractors and the therapists, the lactation, that we do text each other. And I know the families are like, wait, you're texting them? And I'm like, oh, yeah, we
Right.
text, and they're like, wow. And you could just see their moms light up like they really care. And I'm like,
Right.
yeah, we do. It's so I just
Hmm.
think that team approach and unified goals and knowing that we are all here for the same reason, and just that clear communication with the families is so important. And working together and letting them know that we are a team and we do have the same goal is to help mom and baby.
Absolutely. Very true. Very true. So if a parent was listening today, they can remember one thing. Like, what would you want them to know? What would you want them to leave with?
I guys tell all my families, trust your mama gut.
Hmm.
I really think that it's innate, it's important, it's there for a reason. And even from feeding to toddlers to teenagers, which I'm experiencing now, that mama gut doesn't go away.
Hmm.
And we're lucky we have it as moms.
Yeah.
And just embrace it, because if that's telling you something, reach out, find support in whatever that is. But I truly believe as a mom and a therapist and a business owner and a friend and
Hmm.
anything in the world and community, that feeling you get, like just try to figure out what it is, reach out for support, and
Don't second
trust
guess
it.
it.
Yes,
Yes.
just trust it. Even if a doctor or a friend, if one therapist tells you something that you didn't feel like they understood you, there's more.
Hmm.
There's
Hmm.
so many more resources. And for me, just trust it. There's a reason it's
Absolutely.
there.
So true. Very true.
Mhm.
Well, tell us where we can find you because you have a
Yes.
lot of resources available that families can access. So give us that.
Yes. Yeah, so like we mentioned earlier, we have brick and mortar in Homa and in Thibodeau. So that is at Speech and Feeding Therapy. So the Instagram is at Speech and Feeding Therapy. The website is www.speech-feedingtherapy.com, and we can
I'll
share all
clarify
that in the
that.
chat.
Yes,
Yes.
yes.
But on most and then the virtual is Feeding Connections. But as of right now, everything is under at Speech and Feeding Therapy under Instagram. There's
Okay.
like a link tree bio where you can book a virtual call. There's a link to all of my guides. I have an oral motor guide, a body stretch guide, an oral facial massage guide. I just came out with all things oral restriction survival guide.
Okay.
And then I have a bundle too. And they're all under the link tree under the bio. We are going to give our listeners through February 10% off of the guide.
Awesome.
So I hope,
Thank you.
that that would help. And yeah, it's been great. I mean, I'm loving what I'm doing. I'm loving the virtual world of supporting and collaborating with other coaches like you to just
Well,
make sure we're constantly
yes.
on the same page of like what these moms and families need.
Well, and it's very motivating when we see what we do works
Yes.
and in a pretty short amount of time. So when
Yeah.
you are seeing others from different parts of the country or outside of the four walls of your small community
Mm-hmm.
struggle,
Mm-hmm.
it's very it touches us in a very specific way, and we're
Absolutely.
motivated to want to get people to know about what we know that works,
Mm-hmm.
because we know that your baby's still having painful breastfeeding and gassiness at 4 months old. Like, that doesn't have to be that way.
Right.
That's a
Exactly.
very small example, but
Yeah.
we don't, that we see that we have found a way that that doesn't have to be your story, and you
Absolutely.
surely don't have to figure it out on your own. So
Absolutely.
so
Absolutely. Like,
anyway, so blessed to have you
yes.
on to share
Thank
what you're
you.
doing and get that out to more people. Again, we see many desperate moms, and we
Yes.
know that there is such a need. So I'm grateful for your
Yes.
time today, sharing this with us and other people who will come to find more out about you. So thank you so
Yes.
much, Holly. I do
Thank you.
appreciate
I
your
appreciate you
time.
reaching out, and I appreciate us getting to collaborate and share this with the world.
Absolutely. We'll talk
Have a
soon.
great day. All right.
I hope you found this episode on the feeding solutions helpful. If you would like more information, please follow Sensory Solutions on Facebook or Instagram, or you can always visit our website at www.sensorysolutionsTherapy.com. Thanks so much for joining today, and look forward to seeing you next time.